Welcome everyone for an Team Fitness short video. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. Nothing contained on this site is intended to provide healthcare advice. Should you have any healthcare related questions, please call or see your physician or other healthcare provider. Consult your physician or healthcare provider before beginning any weight loss or weight maintenance program. Understand these results are not typical and individual results will vary. The purpose of today's talk is really to compare muscle versus fat and its effect on clothing sizes. If you do a Google search on muscle versus fat, you may pull up a picture that looks like this that compares 5 pounds of muscle to 5 pounds of fat. Now, this is an exaggeration. Muscle is about 15% more dense than fat, so that it's not going to be nearly as dramatic. But the bottom line is, given the same mass, fat will occupy a greater volume than muscle. Or said another way, if you lose 20 pounds of fat and replace it with 20 pounds of muscle, your clothes will get looser. I want to thank Ivan Metzger for providing me with this data. Ivan has a BodPod performance testing and training studio in Worthington, Ohio, and she was kind enough to send me 10 years of data from the same BodPod and lab on one of my clients, which is very rare to have that much data with at least one BodPod, if not multiple BodPods throughout the year. So I want to big shout out to Ivan for helping me out with this. And when I put this data into Excel and generated a fundamental graph, it really struck me. It was very interesting data, and it inspired this video. A little bit about the subject. Her name is Carolyn. She is married with 2 children, an 8 and an 18-year-old. She's employed, average work week about 60 hours. She is very busy. She has what I would call a real life. Family, stress, long work hours, very busy. Mostly on her feet at work, about 3 miles per day of walking. We've measured this with a pedometer. She eats 3 meals a day with a mid-morning, mid-afternoon snack and an occasional PM snack. She follows a 30% protein, 40% carbohydrate, and 20% fat macro composition in her diet. Total caloric intake, 1,800 a day on average, and an additional 300 kilocalories on workout days, mostly in the form of carbohydrate and protein. Generally a pre-workout carb drink followed by a post-workout carb drink with some whey protein. Supplements, multivitamin, creatine monohydrate, 5 grams a day, whey protein as her supplemental protein source with a little bit of the amino acid leucine in, maybe 2 or 3 grams added to a whey protein shake. She uses an ephedra-free fat burner, primarily caffeine and green tea extract. And the quick carb source that she uses pre-workout and post with her whey protein is Vitargo S2. She team trains with Team Fitness 3 days per week, and she does no additional exercise, simply does not have any more time in her day. Carolyn, 2005 is where we start this journey. She was 39 years old, 150 pounds, 66 inches, 29% body fat. At that time, she wore a size 9 to 11 pants and shorts and a medium to large top and shirt. And this is Carolyn in 2005. The key point here is 150 pounds, 29% body fat, and the clothing sizes, or I should say key points. We fast forward to 2015. Carolyn is now 49 years old, still weighs 150 pounds, now 15.6% body fat, now wears a 4 to 6 pants and shorts and a small to medium top and shirt. So she basically lost 20 pounds of fat and gained 20 pounds of muscle over 10 years. Okay, this has been a long-term process. This isn't an overnight event. And she came down from a 9 to 11 to a 4 to 6 and from a medium to large to a small to medium. And this is what Carolyn looks like today. So this is a big change in terms of size from where she was in 2005. But remember, scale weight did not change. She still weighs 150 pounds. She's just a lot smaller now. Clearly a lot stronger. Okay, a little bit about Carolyn's body composition history. This is some pretty cool stuff. I've never had the opportunity to look at data over this time frame. And on the top here we have body mass or scale weight. Here we have lean mass, here we have fat mass, and we have percent body fat. A few bumps in the road here, and I'll talk briefly about these. First one is pregnancy, and this is the approximate time frame. So you can see Carolyn started here with an aggressive bodybuilding style training program and diet, became pregnant, lost a lot of lean mass, increased body fat. There was 6 weeks of bed rest and a fairly long recovery after this. So this first year and a half was really working hard and of course dealing with a newborn and family issues and work issues. Took a little time to get back, and there were a few bumps in the road, but we made progress restoring lean mass, and we also got the body fat back down. And in fact, even at this point, the peak of her pregnancy, she really wasn't more than probably low to mid 30s in terms of percent body fat, so it could have been a lot worse. As time went on, and one thing that really stood out to me here, and it should have hit me a long time ago, and I didn't think about it, nor I really don't know if I would have known what to do about it. There was a period right here in terms of lean mass where Carolyn's progressions in terms of increasing muscle mass stalled out. Now, this was during a time, in fact, my training style from the mid-90s up until the latter 2000s had to do with bodybuilding style programming. So we would come in, hit a bunch of body parts, isolated joint stuff, heavy stuff, kill it every workout. That was the way we rolled for almost 2 decades. But at this point, Carolyn wasn't making any more progress. So I'm thinking to myself, well, and I'm reflecting upon these times, and thinking, well, either she hit her genetic limitations or she's not eating enough. I mean, how could my training possibly not be optimal, right? I mean, we're all younger, we all have those egos, and we refuse to change, thinking, well, this has got to work. It's bodybuilding. Of course she's got to get bigger. Well, we added in the traditional bulking. I said, well, Carolyn, you got to eat more. That's why you're not putting on any more muscle mass. Well, we did that, and you can see it didn't make any change in lean mass. All it did was make her fatter. So that clearly wasn't working. Now, at about the same time all this was happening, I had attended a Perform Better training seminar in Chicago at the end of 2009, and they had some great speakers at this conference. Mark Verstegen, Al Vermeil, other strength coaches were there. They started talking about this functional training style. Now, we talk about functional training, we're talking about the unilateral or bilateral ground-based exercises, not standing on a Bosu ball trying to do squats. And the training styles were starting to involve more sleds, kettlebells, ropes, rings, power cleans, things along those lines that you traditionally didn't see too much in personal training. CrossFit was onto it, and these are tools that were used many years ago that were coming back into vogue. So I started to add these into my programming toward the end of 2010, beginning of 2011, and I was also convinced that high intensity interval work really was the way to go in terms of body composition, because what I saw at my CrossFit certification at the end of 2010 at Hyperfit, I was looking at physiques, male and female, that looked like bodybuilders, but they didn't train like them and they didn't eat like them. So I was thinking, there's something to this style of training that seems to me I'm missing, that I need to be adding in. So I began this slow transition right about this period to start including more functional training style, high intensity interval work, whole body type movements, and Carolyn started to gain lean mass along with other clients. There was a lot of resistance. People didn't want to get away from machines and cable pull downs and all the other traditional stuff because they believed that's what worked. Well, it wasn't. And I didn't even recognize that until I really looked at this graph, and now it all makes sense, because I'm seeing other clients that are also increasing lean mass beyond the times of back in the day with the old school training. There were a couple other bumps in the road. We had minor surgery here, and you can see the effects on body composition. Lean mass falls, fat goes back up. But they were short duration, 2-3 months, and Carolyn was back in business. So we had this continuing trend increasing lean mass. Then in about 2014, the beginning of that, I added in more traditional strength and conditioning work. So we started to focus more on the core lifts and progressions, started working some periodization on the squat, the deadlift, and the bench press, and you can see that augmented the lean mass gain. Now, Carolyn had already plateaued out here at about 16-17% body fat, and what I found during that period of time is that if you try to get leaner than that, and in time going back, that guys can handle getting leaner and still maintain lean mass or add it, but women, you're going to start to really struggle with both health issues, bone density, maintaining lean mass, and not blowing it out on the other side by, I can't do this anymore, and then next thing you know, 3 months later, they've added 30 pounds of fat. So you have to be very careful, and really a 16-17% is a healthy lean, especially if you're strong and you have good bone density. So we were fine with that, and the focus still is on the strength component. Whether Carolyn's hit her genetic limits here or not, I don't know. We'll find out here in the next year. Okay, quickly I want to mention bone density. Obviously endocrine balance is important, mechanical loading, proper nutrition. Key though, mechanical loading. And when I talk about mechanical loading, I'm not talking about standing on a wobble board with 5-pound dumbbells doing arm curls. We're talking about lifting heavy stuff off the floor and putting it back down. That axial loading that's going to increase vertebral bone density, femoral bone density, etc. And this is an example of where this is actually a documentation from Carolyn's bone density going back about 5 months now. We're going to do a repeat here in a couple more months. But you can see that total body bone density from years of heavy lifting is well above young and age-matched comparisons. If we look at her spine bone density, L1 to L4, above average. If we look at her femoral bone density, again, well above average. Now, if I compare this to an individual who started training with me, almost a 52-year-old, basically sat at a desk for a number of years, not completely inactive, but really didn't do much in the way of heavy lifting. You take a look at the femoral bone density here, we're below average. The good thing about this is after 6 months of lifting, we were actually able to reverse some of this. She is due for another IDEXA with Dr. Jackie Buell at The Ohio State University Sports Med, and Dr. Buell works with my client. She's a sports nutritionist. She does the IDEXAs, and when we bring people in, this is very important because this particular individual here, this was an issue because clearly femoral bone density was down, but her distal radius and the area around her wrist was well over -3 T-score and Z-scores for age-matched and young adult controls, and that put her in the osteoporosis range. So we had to be very careful when we started training her to make sure that we didn't create more problems or create a fracture of any sort. So bone density is very important, and IDEXA is an excellent way to measure that, as well as to get regional changes in body composition and a very accurate body composition, and then you can track change with BOD-POD. In summary, I want to emphasize that consistency over time is essential. This is number one. If you want the long-term benefits of an exercise program and a dietary intervention, consistency and sticking with the program is very important, and it has to be manageable. I find that my most consistent clients are the ones that manage stuff in their life the best. And not only does it keep them consistent with training and with dietary intake, it also rolls over onto other parts of their life. People that can't manage their stuff, and everybody has stuff in their life, could be family issues, could be illness, could be work, could be almost anything. The stuff management ones are the ones that do their best. So that's critical. The scale is not an indicator of body composition. That should be clear from this video. Fat occupies more volume per unit mass than muscle. Resistance exercise is necessary to build lean mass and maintain bone density. You can gain muscle while losing fat. It is possible. It is a long-term process. It requires good programming and good dietary interventions. And lastly, and most important, you don't need to live in a gym, spend hours on a treadmill, and diet endlessly to achieve your health and fitness goals. You don't need to do that. It can be done on 3 hours a week. It's great to get some extra cardio in addition if you can, but you don't need to live in a gym. It's unsustainable, and diets that are more physique-style diets, they're great for short-term interventions for getting someone on stage, but to live that lifestyle long-term is very challenging. I want to thank everyone for joining in on this presentation. Again, remember the disclaimer, these results are not typical and individual results will vary, although I can say I have a number of clients that the ones that have been consistent over years have made tremendous progress. And it's not just my program or my diet, this really applies to anything. If you want results, if you want long-term consistency, and you want long-term health and wellness, got to stick with it, no matter what. Thank you.